Well, good evening there to you, ladies and gentlemen. The Scott Manning coming to you live from Scott Manning YouTube Sports Talk. I want to thank all my loyal viewers for being with me here tonight. It is now time, ladies and gentlemen, for the Scott Manning YouTube College Basketball Podcast Show. The show is now in the air. I've got a whole mess of games I want to talk about and get you ready for this weekend. We got two big battles on Sunday, but we got a lot of big games on this Saturday as well. I'm also going to bring you up to date on the latest Bracketology Report, and there have been some major changes to that report as well. And I'm also going to talk about the bubble teams. Which one of the bubble teams has the best chance right now, and who's the bubble team that really needs the most help? I will answer all those tonight, and that will be my closing thought. The bubble teams for the Bracketology Report will be my closing thoughts. And also, too, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have some great fun here. I'm probably going to be here for about a half hour, 45 minutes, because I got a lot to talk about. And this is an opportunity for you to ask me some questions. Leave your comments. If you have any questions, ask me, leave your comments. But let's have some fun, and let's get started. And how are we going to get started with this show on this Friday night? I know. How about thinking about number 8 Michigan State, number 14 Ohio State at the shot tomorrow at 12 noon? Let's think about this for a minute. Ohio State coach Chris Holtmann said, I've already got 2 wins in Big Ten play already. If I can go 3-0 in Big Ten play, we'll really be sitting pretty. I got Caleb Wesson, C.J. Jackson, and I got the guys who can get the job done. Michigan State coach Tom Izzo, he beat Northwestern in his opener. He said, my team's doing pretty good right now, and I really feel confident about our team, and I got 3 of the best guys who can get the job done. For Ohio State, think about this. Caleb Wesson, he averages 16.5 points per game, and he can shoot 73.4% from the free throw line. He could be the big guy. He could be the guy. If this turns into a free throw contest, I would want him at the line. His three-point shooting has not been that impressive. But if you think about it, C.J. Jackson, 13.6 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game. And he also leads his team with the most assists with 3.8 assists per game. He can shoot 47.1% from the field. And also, too, C.J. Jackson is a 78.9% free throw shooter as well. Now, Wesson can shoot 54.4% from the field. Those two can get the job done. But if you think about this as a team, Ohio State needs to try to keep this game close. This is an evenly matched game. I love this one for a lot of reasons. It's evenly matched. For Michigan State, you got Cassius Winston, 17.1 points per game, 7.8 assists per game. He's a very dangerous dude. He shoots 47% from the field, and he's also an 83% free throw shooter. That's something else you need to think about. And he can also shoot 45.7% from three-point land. Another player for Michigan State I have on my watch list, Nick Ward. Yes, boss, I'm going to talk about your son. Nick Ward, 16.4 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game. He shoots 65.9% from the field, but he may only be a 61.9% free throw shooter. But he can shoot 65% from the field. That really makes up for it. Joshua Langford, another guy I have on the watch list for Michigan State. 15 points per game. He shoots 44.3% from the field. He's also an 83.9% free throw shooter, and he shoots 40.3% from three-point land. Now, here's what Ohio State needs to do if they want to win this game. They got to get Nick Ward into foul trouble early. They got to get him into foul trouble. Cassius Winston, they got to get Cassius Winston, Nick Ward. If they get one of those two into foul trouble, I think Ohio State's going to keep it close. But I'm going to tell you right now, Ohio State needs needs one good thing to happen. This game needs to be decided at the free throw line because Ohio State has a very slight edge in the free throw department. If it's a 3-point contest, it's going to be very close. But if it turns into a shot, if this turns into a game of shooting in from inside the arc, it's going to be a toss-up. So Ohio State's best shot is if this turns into a free throw contest, the Buckeyes have it. I really do. I am a little bit concerned because Ohio State's only shooting 37.4% as a team from beyond the arc this season. Michigan State's a little bit better at 40.8. So there is a little bit of concern there. But I will say this, though. This game is going to be fun to watch. Last year, Ohio State shocked then number 1 Michigan State at the shot. And some people have already said, I wish they would play this game at St. John Arena. Now the Schottenstein Center could fit 18,000 people. St. John Arena only fits 13,000. But if any of you have ever been to St. John Arena in Columbus at Ohio State, on the Ohio State campus, I mean, St. John Arena was so small, you could actually fit a bunch of people in there, and the crowd noise, you wouldn't be able to hear yourself think. But the bottom line is, on this Saturday, Ohio State, Michigan State, what a way to start Saturday. And this game is so important and so huge. Whoever wins this game may have the best shot of winning the Big Ten championship, unless somebody can stop Michigan. The loser of this game may be lucky to get a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. I know it sounds bad. I know it's only January 4th. But however, it's not too early to be thinking about March Madness. It's really not. And I'm going to say it now. This game has got Big Ten implications on the line already. I can't believe we're talking about Big Ten play. We're talking about a big game like this right out of the gate. However, it's time to get serious, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to buckle down. And I'm going to say this, though. You think the first three shows I did for my college basketball YouTube podcast show were crazy? The first 3 shows? You haven't seen anything yet. Conference play starts today. Conference play really gets underway for these two tomorrow. And it's going to get crazy. Bottom line. Any of you think this Big Ten opener was really crazy? You haven't heard anything yet. St. John's faces Georgetown, a Big East opener. 2 old school Big East teams are going to go at it tomorrow. St. John's, the surprise St. John's Red Storm. They've been a nice surprise. Georgetown, they've been a nice surprise too this season. St. John's only has 1 loss, but despite the fact that Georgetown only has 3 losses this season, these 2 teams are playing very good basketball right now. Now, St. John's faces Georgetown tomorrow. For St. John's, Shamari Pons, he's one of the best players I got 4 players on the watch list for St. John's. Shamari Pons, 19.2 points per game. He averages 4.8 rebounds per game and has 6 assists per game. That is huge. He shoots 50% from the field. That could be important tomorrow in this matchup. And he's also an 83.3% free throw shooter. That could be huge down the stretch, and he shoots 37.7% from three-point land. Mustafa Heron, 15.9 points per game. Hey, Fast Break, how you doing tonight? It's good to see you, man. Glad to have you with me. 5.3 rebounds per game for Heron, and he also shoots 46.2% from the field. That's big. He also shoots 76.2% from the free throw line, and he's also a 49.1% three-point shooter. That could be huge for St. John's tomorrow in this matchup. LJ Figueroa, another one on the watch list for St. John's. 14.6 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game. He shoots 54.6% from the field. He could be the guy that could score from inside the arc. Watch for him tomorrow. And he's also he may only be a 57.1% free throw shooter, but he could shoot 40% from three-point land. That could be big tomorrow as well. Marvin Clark II. He may only average 13.2 rebounds per game, but he also has 5.4 rebounds per game. He's also an 81.3% free throw shooter. If this comes down to a free throw contest, I will want him at the line. And all these guys have said, and all the 4 of those players have said, bring on Georgetown. We're ready for our Big East opener. We're ready for the opener. Now for Georgetown. Think about this. I got 3 players on my watch list. And Georgetown coach Patrick Ewing has already said, and yes, this is the same Patrick Ewing that played at Georgetown back in the early 80s and who also played for the New York Knicks. Just FYI. And he's already said, we're ready for St. John's. We're ready to possibly shock everybody and win the Big East crown. Villanova is struggling, and I'll get to Villanova here in a few minutes. But Georgetown could be the team that could take it. And I think I've got the 3 guys on my and the 3 guys I got on the watch list could be the team that could merely make things interesting. Jesse Govan, 15.2 points per game. That is the most important thing we can see. 7.4 rebounds per game, but Jesse Govan can score from inside the arc. 55.1% for the season from inside the arc. He's also a very, very good 77.8% free throw shooter, and he also averages 44.2% from the free throw line. I am going to do thank you for asking me that. I am going to do a quick stream on the Alabama-Clemson game. I have not forgotten about that. That will probably be done probably sometime Sunday afternoon or probably sometime Monday morning or Monday afternoon. I haven't decided yet. But that Alabama-Clemson stream will happen. You have my word. But anyway. But hey, but thank you for asking me, though. I do appreciate that. But anyway. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. There we go. James Acajano for Georgetown. He averages 14 points per game. And he averages 4.4 assists per game. He also shoots 40 points. He also shoots 40% from inside the arc. And he's also a very good 79.7% free throw shooter. He could be another one that could do some damage. Mac McClung, another one to think about on my watch list. He may only average 12.3 points per game, but he only may shoot 38.3% from inside but he's also an 80.4% free throw shooter. Those are the three guys I have on my watch list for Georgetown. Now, this game is going to be the most interesting game of the weekend because let's think about this. These two teams are almost evenly matched with the exception of the three-point shooting. St. John's as a team shoots 40.2% from three-point land, while Georgetown only shoots 36.2%. A 4% difference there. However, when it comes to shooting from inside the arc and from the free throw line, they're very evenly matched. St. John's is a little bit better from inside the arc with 48.6% to Georgetown's 46.1%. And it's at the free throw line. Georgetown is a little bit better at 72.7%. The St. John's 71.1%. So this game is going to be very interesting. And this is a 1 o'clock start. So we're going to have two big games. The Michigan State-Ohio State contest, and you're going to have St. John's and Georgetown going on almost at the same time. My poor remote control is going to get a workout, and my poor remote thumb's probably going to be sore. I'll probably have to wear about 4 or 5 bandages before this day is over. But anyway, this game is going to be a close one. Georgetown, St. John's. Georgetown coach Patrick Ewing has already said, I'm ready. I will be ready. Yeah, but this game, in all seriousness, is going to be crazy. It's the Big East. Need I say more? And you know Georgetown, St. John's, old school Big East, it is going to be fun. And now we've talked about the Big Ten, the Big East. I'm going to do something a little bit different tonight. I am going to talk about the Mid-America Conference, the MAC. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, oh, the MAC is a boring conference. They're a boring conference. Well, let me tell you something. I've got a sister who graduated from Ohio University. And I gave her my word that I would talk about the MAC some way, somehow, one of these days. And I'm going to start tonight because Mid-America Conference play starts tomorrow for the Ohio Bobcats as they face Northern Illinois. And I'm going to tell you something. I've looked at the information. We got a battle of 2 first-place teams in the MAC. The Bobcats lead the MAC East, while Northern Illinois leads the MAC West. But I'm going to tell you something. This game may be very interesting, too, with the exception of the three-point shooting. Now, for the Ohio Bobcats, Jason Carter, he averages 18 points per game. I didn't realize that. He also shoots 50.6% from the field. And he's also a very good 74% free throw shooter. Tavion Kirk, 15.9 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game. He leads the team in that category. He shoots 44.4% from inside the arc. But he may only be a 61.3% free throw shooter, but the 44.4% from inside the arc really makes up for it. Ben Vanderplas, 10.8 points per game, but He does average 5.1 rebounds per game, and he's also an 81.8% free throw shooter, and that could be big. And he shoots 45.8% from inside the arc. He's the best three-point shooter they have at 38.9%. Now, for Northern Illinois, Eugene Germain. There's a big guy on the watch list for this game tomorrow. 20.9 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, and 2.9 assists per game. That could be huge. He shoots 50.3% from inside the arc, and he may only be a 71.1% free throw shooter, but he shoots 44.2% from three-point land. That could be huge as well. Levi Bradley, 16.2 points per game. He averages almost 6.7 rebounds per game. That is huge right there as well. Think about that. He shoots 55.5% from the field, and he's only a 71.7% free throw shooter himself. But he makes up for it by shooting 45.5% from three-point land. Dante Thorpe. There's another guy on my watch list. He can shoot the ball too. He may only average 11.6 points per game, but he could shoot 52.9% from the field and 66.7% from the free throw line and 30.4% from three-point land. Now, surprisingly, the ESPN Basketball Power Index gives the Ohio Bobcats almost a 77% chance of winning this game tomorrow, despite the following. If you look at just the three-point shooting, you got to give this game to Northern Illinois. But let's think about this. Now, three-point shooting for Northern Illinois, 37.5%. Yeah. Wow, I was right. I looked at it myself. I was like, you got to be kidding me. But I will tell you this. I will give the Bobcats credit. As a team, they shoot 45% from the field. They shoot 67.1% from the free throw line and only 28.9% from three-point land. Those numbers are not very good. But I will say this in all fairness. This is the Mid-America Conference. They don't have the major backing and the major funding like some of the power conferences do. Now I know you're thinking, the MAC, but don't take these smaller conferences lightly. They can come out of the woodwork. I've seen it. I've seen what some of these lower schools can do. This ain't my first rodeo, and it ain't going to be my last. But if you think about this too, for Northern Illinois, their team numbers, 50.5% from the field. They shoot from 50.5% from inside the arc. They only average 68.2% from the free throw line, but the three ball shooting 37.5%. Surprisingly, I can't believe that they're actually picking that the Basketball Power Index is going with the Bobcats to win this game tomorrow. Unbelievable. But I will say this though. A lot of people have said, the MAC, it's boring. But let me tell you something. I've seen stranger things happen. But don't take the Mid-America Conference lightly. Yeah, you got that right. Yeah, that's a fact. Purdue has beaten Ohio in college football. But I will say this, though. It's going to be very interesting to see how that game goes tomorrow. That's going to be interesting. All right. We've gone from the Big Ten to the Big East to the Mid-America Conference. Now we're going back to the Big East. The next game I want to talk about is Villanova-Providence. Now, Villanova, the defending national champions, have not been playing very good here lately. As it stands right now, Villanova is on the 7 line for the NCAA tournament. What's going on with the Wildcats all of a sudden? A lot of people have said they've had some struggles. They have. There's been no change in that, and there's no denying it. Villanova coach Jay Williams has said a lot has changed since last year's national championship team. We're not playing like ourselves. We've had our fair share of struggles. We've almost lost 3 in a row. We got to get a wake-up call. Providence coach Ed Cooley has stated, when we finally get into conference play, maybe we could show these people why we were so good like we were last year. We've come out of nowhere and almost took the Big East crown. That's how we got in the tournament. Let's think about this for a minute. Now, this game is evenly matched as well. because I've looked at everything. Villanova, Providence, this game is going to be very evenly matched, and here's why. Think about it. I got three players on the watch list for Villanova. Phil Booth, 16.9 points per game. He's a very good player. I mean, he shoots 77.8% from the free throw line. And he shoots 44.7% from inside the arc. That could be important. He can get the job done. He's a guy that's not afraid to get in the way and bump some guys if he needs to on his way to the bucket. Eric Paschal, 15.9 points per game. 5.6 rebounds per game. He's a very good he shoots 77% from the free throw line. That could be a huge thing. That could be a huge factor tomorrow. And he shoots 44.2% from inside the arc. And he's also a very good 38.6% three-point shooter as well. Colin Gillespie. He may only average 11.5 points per game. He does average 4.4 assists per game. And he's also, in the most important stat of all, he's an 85.4% he's 85.4% from the free throw line. Villanova coach Jay Williams has already said, I'm ready to start conference play. I'm ready to get underway, and I'm ready to see what we can do to Providence. Providence coach Ed Cooley said, I got some confidence in my guys. Maybe we can get the job done. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that, but let's think about this for a minute. Alpha Diallo, their best player they've got, 17.4 points per game. He does average 8.6 rebounds per game. That could be very huge as well. He only shoots 70.6% from the free throw line, but this is a biggie. He makes up for it by shooting 40.7% from three-point land. Well, take care, man. Well, you have a good night, Fast Break 386, and I'll see you later, man. I'll catch up with you. Have a good night. And I'll catch up with you later, brother. Okay. Well, thank you, man. I really do appreciate it. You can finish watching I will have this show available for you to watch as soon as I'm done with it, and you can watch it at a later time. Okay. All right. Now, where was I? Okay. Now I know where I was at. Now, the next player on the watch list for Providence is going to be A.J. Reeves. He averages 14.2 points per game, and he shoots 50% from the field. That is huge because he's only a 71.4% he only averages 71.4% from the free throw line. And and that can be the most important thing of all. And he shoots 45.3% from three-point land. That is big too. The next player on my watch list for Providence is Nate Watson. He may only average 10.1 points per game, but he shoots 56.2% from the field. That could be huge tomorrow if they need a basket from somebody late in the game for Providence to beat Villanova. Now, if you look at this matchup on paper, I've looked at everything. If it comes down, now this game is decided at the free throw line, give it to Villanova. 73% now Villanova averages 73% as a team at the free throw line. Providence, 67.2%. If you don't make free throws in the Big East, you're not going anywhere. Now, if this comes down to a game from inside the arc, it's a toss-up. A very, very, very slight edge for Villanova. 44.8% to 44.7%. But if it's a three-point contest, if this game is decided by three-pointers, give it to Providence because they shoot much better as a three-ball team. 38.4% is 38.4% for Providence, only 34.9% for Villanova. This game is going to be a toss-up. Now, here's what needs to happen for Villanova to win. They got to get Diallo into foul trouble early. And they got to get either Diallo or Reeves into foul trouble early. If they don't, it's going to be a long game. But Providence, here's what they need to do. They got to hit three-point shots. They got to get Phil Booth into it. They got to hound Phil Booth all day. They got to put about 2 or 3 guys around him to make it impossible for him to get to the bucket. Because Eric Paschal, same thing. They got to stop Booth and Paschal to have any chance of winning this game tomorrow. And it's going to be a very interesting contest. This game is going to come down to who wants it the most. And I will say this. The bottom line is it's going to come down to whoever wants it the most. Villanova or Providence. And a win here, and a win what really, Villanova or Providence. Whoever wins this game is really going to get some help on their NCAA tournament resume. And they can help themselves with a big victory when they get ready for the Big East tournament here in March. I know it's only the 4th of January, but it's not too early to be talking about the NCAA tournament. Bottom line. All right. Now, let's move on to the Big 12. Number 5 Kansas versus Iowa State. And I've got some great news for Kansas fans everywhere. Udaka Azubuike is back. And he could be a very, very interesting. And it was proven against Oklahoma the other night. Excuse me. Now, Kansas coach Bill Self has already said it's good to have him back. We had to come back to beat Oklahoma the other night. And I'm going to tell you now, it's going to be great to see what we can do and how we can show Iowa State. Now, some people are actually thinking Iowa State could pull off the upset. Now, this game isn't, and this game is in Kansas. So let's think about this for a minute. Now, first, for Kansas Kansas coach Bill Self said, we're coming off of a big win over Oklahoma in our opener. Well, I have a lot of confidence in my team now. And he should. Dietrich Lawson, 19.1 points per game. 11.1 rebounds per game. That is huge. And he shoots 50.3% from the field, and he's also an 80.5% free throw shooter. That could be huge too. Another one I have on the watch list for Kansas, LaGerald Vick, 15.5 points per game, 4.1 rebounds per game. He shoots 48.4% from the field. He may only be a 70% free throw shooter, but he makes up for it by being a 45.3% three-point shooter. Devon Dotson, 11.5 points per game. I know that doesn't seem like much, but he's an 80.4% free throw shooter. He can get the job done at the free throw line if needed. For Iowa State, Mariel Shayak, 19.8 points per game. That's huge. If Iowa State wants to upset Kansas to begin conference play. 5.6 rebounds per game. He shoots 50% from inside the arc, but he's also an 87% free throw shooter. He averages 87% from the free throw line. Think about that. And he shoots 33.8% from three-point land. That could be huge if Iowa State wants to pull off the upset. The next player on the watch list for Iowa State is Lindell Whittington. He averages 15 points per game, people. Take him, don't take him lightly. He shoots 43.8% from the field. That could be huge down the stretch. Michael Jacobson, he's another one I got to think about. 14.5 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game. He may only average 66.1% from the free throw line, but he could shoot 63.1% from inside the arc. That could be huge. And he's also a very good 43.5% three-point shooter as well. Tanlin Horton-Tucker, the last guy on my watch list for Iowa State. 13.6 points per game. He could be very huge down the stretch. 40.4. He shoots 40.4% from inside the arc. This game is going to be interesting. It is a conference opener. It's the conference opener for Iowa State. But if Iowa State can upset Kansas in Big 12 play, it's going to turn the Big 12 upside down. Because, Kansas is that good. But will they be good enough to win? Listen to some of these team numbers, and there's a cause for concern if you're Kansas. Now, the team numbers for Kansas are, they average 41.8% from inside the arc. That's very good. And he shoots 34.4% from three-point land. But here's the big Achilles heel. At the free throw line, they only average 68.4% from the free throw line. That could be huge in the end. Now, the team numbers for Iowa State, they average 48.5%. That could be important. And they're a better free throw shooting team at 72.3%. If this is a three-ball contest, it's going to be a toss-up because they only average 34.9% from three-point land. So I'm telling you, Kansas, Iowa State. A lot of people out in Manhattan, out at Allen Fieldhouse down in Lawrence, over in Lawrence, they're thinking, "Oh, this is going to be a blowout." I don't see it that way. I really don't. Now I know Kansas. They lost a tough game to Arizona State a while back. But the bottom line is this game is going to be very interesting and it's going to be very fun to watch. And I'm going to say this now. Kansas, Iowa State, I wouldn't sleep on that game if I were you. And if you think about why, you'll understand. All right. The next game I want to talk about. West Virginia, Texas. Now, if you saw my report this morning on Facebook, I said to a lot of people, West Virginia has some players that need to grow up. And now Texas, they're having their struggles too. I'm going to do Texas first, and I'll get to West Virginia, and I'll tell you what's going on there in a second. Now, this game is going to be very interesting. Texas coach Shaka Smart has already said, "I'm ready for West Virginia. We can really improve our tournament resume, and there's a lot we got to do, and we can get the job done." Now, Texas is coming off of a win the other night. How in the world have the Longhorns managed to stay with it? Here's how. Curran Roach II, 13.6 points per game. It may not look like much, but he shoots 41% from inside the arc. That could be huge down the stretch. And he does average 4.7 rebounds per game and 4 assists per game. That could be very important as well. And he shoots 34.4% from beyond the arc. His free throw numbers are not that good at 69.7%. But he does make up for it from shooting inside the arc. He can get the job done. Now, Matt Coleman. He may only average 10 points per game, but only 3.3 assists per game. But he could be an underdog. Now, Grant, he only shoots 38.6% from the field and 70.6% from the free throw line and only 32.7% from three-point land. But here's the thing. Texas is barely into the would barely be in the NCAA field if the tournament were to start tomorrow. West Virginia, on the other hand, they've got some guys that need to grow up. But I got 4 guys on the watch list for West Virginia. And West Virginia coach Bob Huggins has said, if we don't start getting going here now, we're going to be on the outside looking in. We're not even in the first 4 out. We're not even the next 4 out because I got some guys who don't care. Well, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of these guys who don't care. Sigaba Chianti. And Bob Huggins has already said he's on my watch list on misbehaving. He only averages 13.6 points per game. He's an 81.3% free throw shooter. What's going on there? And he averages 43.5% from inside the arc. Issa Ahmad, 13.6 points per game, 5.7 rebounds per game. He shoots 46.5% from the field. He only averages 68.5% from the free throw line. Lamont West, 11.6 points per game, 81.8%, and he averages 81.8% from the free throw line. And he shoots 41.7% from the field. That could be interesting too. James Bolden, he averages 11.3 points per game. Now, grant you, he shoots 41% from inside the arc, and he's a 74.2% free throw shooter. Now, if you look at the team numbers, this is going to be a very interesting game. This game could be evenly matched, if you get what I'm saying. The team numbers from the field: West Virginia 42.5, Texas 42.9. Now, if this turns into a free throw contest, a very slight edge to Texas, 66.4 to West Virginia's 65.8. 3-point contest, toss-up. So this is a hard game to pick. Now, I know a lot of you guys are thinking, oh, we don't care about this game. Both teams are struggling. We want to know about Kansas, Oklahoma. But I'm telling you right now, the reason why I'm talking about this game is because Texas would be barely into the NCAA tournament field if the tournament were to start tomorrow. Now, I grant you, West Virginia is not even part of the next 4 out. But West Virginia, if they can get some big wins to start conference play, that would be a real big help. They're their tournament resume. And the bottom line is, it's going to be a very interesting game to see how this one goes. And I'm not going any further about that one here tonight. All right. Now, that's the Saturday slate. I've got 2 games on Sunday that need to be talked about. Number 2 Indiana, number 21 Indiana versus number 2 Michigan. If Indiana was number 2 in the country, a lot of people would be asking me, Scott, did Indiana hire back Bob Knight? They didn't. But now, it's well worth talking about. Number 21 Indiana, number 2 Michigan. I'm going to start it out with number 2 Michigan as soon as I get a swig here. Now, for Michigan, Ingas Brazadikis. I don't think that's how you pronounce his last name, but for tonight, close enough. Now, this guy here, he can shoot. He averages 16.4 points per game. That can be huge down the stretch. Now, he may only shoot 76.8% from the free throw line. However, he does make up for it by shooting 49.4% from inside the arc. And from three-point land, he shoots 42.2%. Brizadakis could be a guy that could decide the game tomorrow. But I have 2 other players on the Michigan watch list. Charles Matthews. The big concern I have for him is he's only a 61.5% free throw shooter. But he really makes up for it by shooting 44% from inside the arc. Jordan Poole, another one on my watch list. He averages 13.8 points per game. He shoots 52% from inside the arc. And he's an 82.4% free throw shooter. And he shoots 48.6% from three-point land. That could be very important tomorrow as well. On Sunday. Now, for Indiana, let's think about this. The Hoosiers can really prove themselves worthy of being in contention for the Big Ten title. Now, let's think about this. Romeo Langford, 18.3 points per game. He averages 5.7 rebounds per game. That could be very important as well. He may only average 69.8% from the free throw line, but he shoots 51.1% from inside the arc. That could be very important. Juwan Morgan, 16.1 points per game. That's very good. He does also average 7.8 rebounds per game. He's only a 60% free throw shooter as well, but he can shoot 67.6% from inside the arc, and he also averages 45.2% from three-point land. That could be very important as well. And this game is fairly evenly matched if you stop and think about it. Now, if this game turns into a game from inside the arc, give it to Indiana. Indiana could pull off an upset. They average 52.6% from inside the arc. Michigan only averages 46.6%. That's very important. At the free throw line, very slight edge to Michigan. Although ugly, it is a very slight edge. Michigan 65.4% at the free throw line to Indiana 64.4%. And also, Michigan has a very slight edge in the three-ball department, 37.6% to 36% from Indiana. Now, here's what needs to happen if Indiana wants to pull off the upset. They got to get Charles Matthews or Brazadikis into foul trouble early. If they don't get him into foul trouble early, it's going to be a long game. If Michigan wants to win, they got to hound Romeo Langford and Juwan Morgan all game. And also, if Indiana's got to hound Matthews and Brizadakis all game as well, if they want to win it. But I'm telling you right now, it's going to be a very interesting game on Sunday afternoon. And we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a crazy game this coming Sunday. And now, the last game I want to talk about is number 24 Nebraska, number 25 Iowa. Nebraska is coming off of a tough loss. In Iowa, they're about clicking on all cylinders at the moment. All right, for Nebraska, James Palmer Jr., 20.1 points per game, very impressive. And he's also at 81.8. He also averages 81.8% at the free throw line. That could be huge tomorrow. Isaac Copeland Jr., 14.1 points per game, 5.4 rebounds per game. That could be very huge as well. He may only shoot 68.6% from the free throw line, but he makes up for it by shooting 55% from the field. That could be huge as well. Glenn Watson Jr., 13.5 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game. He averages 4.1 assists per game. He's an 88.5% free throw shooter for Nebraska. That could be huge tomorrow for them as well. Isaiah Roby, he may only average 10.2 points per game, but he shoots 45.7% from the field. That could be huge tomorrow on Sunday for Nebraska if they want to knock off Iowa. Now, for the Iowa Hawkeyes, Tyler Cook, their star player, 17.4 points per game. He averages 8.4 rebounds per game. He may only shoot 70.3% from the free throw line, but he's a 55.9% shooter from the inside the arc. That could be huge. Keep that in mind. Luke Garza, he may only average 12.7 rebounds per game. He's a very impressive shooter, 51.6% from inside the arc. And he also averages 84.2% from the free throw line. I would want Garza at the free throw line with a shot to win it in the end if I had to. Another guy I have on the watch list is Joe Weiskamp. Now, he averages 11 points per game. The free throw numbers worry me a little bit about him. 68.2% from the free throw line. That's not very good. But he makes up for it by shooting 49.5% from inside the arc. And he shoots 43.6% from three-point land. That could be huge too, down the stretch. And the last player on the watch list for Iowa, Jordan Bohannon. 10.4. I know he only averages 10.4 points per game, but he shoots 81.4% from the free throw line. That could be huge down the stretch as well. So keep that in mind. And if you look at the team numbers for this game, it's going to be too close to call. Iowa has the advantage when it comes to being at the free throw line. Nebraska, as far as the shooting it from inside the arc, a very, very slight edge for Nebraska, 47.4% to Iowa's 47.2%. That don't mean much. But if it comes down to a three-point contest, slight edge to Nebraska, 37.8% to 35.5% for Iowa. So this game is going to be a very interesting game on Sunday. Now, everybody's been asking me, Scott, why do you take this stuff so seriously? The reason is very simple. I look at everything. I look at the numbers. I crunch the numbers. I take a look at all, and everybody, and I'm not like one of those talking heads who kiss up to one school and say, oh, let's talk about that for an hour. I go all over the country. I started out as a local guy, just talking about Ohio State. Then I decided to expand. It's turned out to be the best thing in the world that has ever happened to me. And I thank you guys for making it possible for me. And now all the games have been talked about. I got the latest Bracketology Report. And I've got some new changes. There have been a lot of changes, and including a new number one. Tennessee is now on the one line. And they very much deserve to be there. Now, if you look at each region, and if you look at everything, you'll see what I mean. Out of the East region as it stands right now, Iowa, as a result of the toughness, as a result of some of the hardships they've had, they've gone down from the 7 line to the 8 line. Yale, the little prep school, some of the little prep school boys. I shouldn't sound like that out of the Ivy League. But I just got to have a little fun at the expense of the Ivy League. But anyway, Yale, welcome aboard. You're at the 13 line this week out in the East region. Buffalo, as a result of that tough loss to Marquette, they're down from the 5 line to the 6 line. UCF, welcome. You've actually gone from the 11 line up to the 10 line this week. Now let's head to the West region. Tennessee, now on the 1 line. As a result of some big victories that you guys have scored, you guys deserve it. Marquette, one of the surprise hot teams in the Big East. Congratulations, you guys are now up on the 5 line. Purdue, you've had a rough go. You've gone down from the 8 line to the 9 line. Ohio State, some great wins this week. You've gone back. You've moved back up to the 4 line. Kentucky, you're back up on the 6 line. Virginia Commonwealth, congratulations, you're now in. You're now the newest addition. And just an FYI, if the tournament were to start tomorrow, Kentucky and Virginia Commonwealth would face each other in the first round. And last but not least, out in the West region, TCU on the 7 line this week. Now, let's head to the Midwest region real quick. Cincinnati, you've had a rough go of it here this week. You've gone down from the 7 line to the 8 line. LSU, the surprise LSU Tigers out of the Southeast Conference, you've gone from the 10 line to the 9 line. Nebraska, after a tough loss, you've gone from the 4 line to the 5 line. Oregon's now gone down to the 12 line, and an FYI there. If the tournament were to start tomorrow, Nebraska and Oregon would face each other in the first round. New Mexico State, you almost knocked off Kansas a few weeks back. You've gone from the 13 line to the 14 line. Seton Hall, welcome. You're now on the 10 line. You're a new addition to the team, and you're now on the 10 line. Out of the South region, this is where most of the moving and the shaking took place. Kansas State, you've had some tough losses this week. You got some guys banged up. You've gone from the 7 line to the 8 line. Florida State, you've gone up from the 5 line to the 4 line this week. Very impressive week for you out of the ACC. Arizona State, when you knock off a number 1 team in the country, on your floor, you deserve to move up. You've gone from, I forgot to write that information down. That was my fault there. Oklahoma, the surprise Oklahoma Sooners. Now, you guys lost 70-63 a couple of nights ago. But as it stands right now, you guys are on the 3 line. Villanova and Maryland, they have both gone down. Villanova is on the 7 line. Maryland is on the 10 line. And also, too, FYI, if the tournament were to start tomorrow, those 2 teams would face off in the first round. And Virginia has gone from the 1 line down to the 2 line. And that's how Tennessee moved up this week. And that was huge. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to close out the show by talking about the bubble, about the teams on the bubble. And I'm going to talk about a lot of them, and we're going to see what we can do, or what they can do to stay off the bubble. Now let's start with the last 4 byes. Maryland, Minnesota, UCF, and Creighton. Now Creighton may have gotten themselves off the bubble with a big win the other night, and that may have helped them. Maryland, Minnesota, they got to knock off Michigan State, Ohio State, Purdue. If Maryland and Minnesota can knock off Michigan State, Ohio State, I think they could really help their cause. UCF, you got to win out. You just got to keep winning and winning and winning. Creighton, you got yourself off to a good start with a big win in the Big East opener. And now, the last 4 in. San Francisco, out of one of the West Coast conferences. All you got to do is keep winning. That's all you can do. Texas. It's very simple for the Longhorns. If they can beat West Virginia tomorrow, and if they can find a way way to win out. And if they can get like, they can rack up so many wins in Big 12 play, that would be a big help. But I know Texas, they have yet to face Oklahoma, Kansas yet. I know they got to face a tough Texas Tech team. But if they can find some way to pull all that off, and if they can go good ways in the Big 12 tournament, they have a shot. Utah State, another team that's having some struggles. They just got to find some ways to win. Florida, literally almost the last one into the field. The Florida Gators. If Florida can knock off Kentucky, Tennessee, and if they can go good ways in the SEC tournament, I think they can get in. Now, what do we do about the first four out? The one team I want to talk about the most in the first four out category is Syracuse. The Syracuse Orange. Syracuse out of the ACC. Jim Boeheim, I be sitting my guys down and saying, hey, we got to find ways to beat Duke, North Carolina. We got to find a way to beat Clemson. We got to find a way to beat Florida State. Because right now, we're one of the first four out. But I'm going to tell you right now, Syracuse is the team that has the best shot of turning everything around in the first four out category. The other three teams from the first four out are Arizona, Ole Miss, and Washington. Those are the other three teams from the first four out. Arizona, you got to win the Pac-12. That's the only hope you have. Ole Miss, you got to win the SEC tournament. Washington, you got to find some way to win the Pac-12 tournament. That's all there is to it. And now, the next four out. According to Joe Lunardi, the next four out are Clemson. Clemson plays Duke tomorrow. Clemson has a matchup against Duke tomorrow night. If Clemson upsets Duke at Cameron Indoor, they can really help their tournament resume up. That victory could go a long way in helping them in their tournament resume. Fresno State out of the West Coast Conference. The West Coast Conference is always the toughest. Fresno State, they almost have to win their conference tournament. Vanderbilt out of the SEC. They're kind of in the same bind Florida is, but just a little bit tougher. Vanderbilt's got to beat Tennessee. They got to find a way to beat Kentucky, and they also got to find a way to beat Florida. Excuse me. So Vanderbilt's going to be one of those teams that's going to have some struggles. Temple. They got to win their conference tournament. That's all there is to it. Bottom line. And now, ladies and gentlemen, before I go, it has been so fun tonight talking to you guys tonight about the shape of the college basketball show. And it's been very interesting to see how things have been going so far. As we begin conference play tomorrow, as the real meat of conference play starts tomorrow. What we saw earlier this week was kind of a side dish, with the exception of Kansas, Oklahoma. More of it's been like a side dish. Starting tomorrow, we get the meat and potatoes of conference play. And that's all there is to it. And it's going to be very interesting. I'm going to be very interested to see how conference play goes. And it's going to be fun. And I want to see how everything goes on this Saturday. Starting tomorrow in college basketball, we started right out at high noon with Michigan State, Ohio State. Whoever wins that game may be in the driver's seat to possibly win the Big Ten championship and take it away from Michigan. Now, I've got that game marked down, but I also have January 29th on the calendar to mark down for Ohio State because that's the only meeting they have against Michigan, and it's at the Chrysler Arena in Ann Arbor. And it's going to be very interesting, and I'm going to be interested to see how that goes. And I'm also going to say this. This is going to be a very interesting Saturday in college basketball. And I'm going to go ahead and get out of here because my voice is going away. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here this evening. please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Scott Manning. All you have to do is just type my name down, scroll down, look for this preface, and you'll see all the sports videos I have done so far. Thank you guys so much for being with me. I was almost here for almost an hour, but I want to thank you guys for the comments. But thank you guys so much for being with me here this evening. You guys have a great night. I will be back tomorrow night for the Scott Manning YouTube College Basketball Wrap-Up Show, where I'm going to talk about some of these games today, depending on how they go. And if there's any upsets along the way, I'll let you know about those too. But tomorrow, immediately following the Michigan State-Ohio State contest, you will get my immediate reaction to that classic battle. And it's going to be a classic. And I'm not going to go any further here this evening. And it's been a great Saturday. It's been a great show. Thank you so much for your participation. And you guys were a great group. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much for being with me. And God bless. Good night, everybody. And thank you.